And hi, everyone. My name's Mickey Diener. I am one of the three co-organizers of Divi NYC. We have a really nice team. With me are Patty Rose and Seema Talwar.
Yeah, that's good.
Either one, right? I
Either
know
one.
you use a bunch of different names. Um, Raquel, we didn't put the link in Meetup on purpose so that we didn't get Zoom bombed, and we sent out the link in a separate email via Meetup
Okay.
this morning. That was our method, but we can talk about that offline. But our presenter today is Dirk Tolken. Dirk is the CMO of Semantica Digital, which is a full-service digital agency in Cape Town, South Africa. So Dirk is coming to us from really far away. Dirk's also the organizer of the Cape Town Divi, I almost said USA, Divi Nation meetup. And Dirk is going to talk to us about best practices for e-commerce and implementing with Divi. So with that, I'll hand it over to Dirk. And first of all, thanks so much for being here with us.
Thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen. Great. Raquel, as I actually shared, well, everybody, I shared this with the team before we started, and I think I'll start with this quote, which serves for everybody that works online and gets to do things and build things. It's very true for everybody, and the reason why I wanted to start with that is just that anybody who builds a website, whether it's e-commerce or not, you should always know that at some stage you have to launch, and you can't necessarily get everything perfect and done, but like they also say, the other quote, done is better than perfect. So I think it's just an apt quote to start with. What I'll be talking about today is just a few first tips on launching an e-commerce store. I'm going to keep it simple when we start out, because I want to focus more on layouts and UX and things like that. But it's kind of 101. So if at any point I get too technical or you have a question, please do stop me so that I can answer if I am able to. I'm going to talk about just some best practice tips for particular layouts, including header, footer, homepage, the actual category archive, the actual product page, and then just show how to use the theme builder to make some edits on your layouts. That's pretty easy to do with Divi and elegant themes. If we have time, I'll cover a marketing slide just to talk about it briefly, and we can end with questions and answers. Or what we can do, Mickey, is we can do the questions right as we go. So I don't mind either way. It just depends on the time that we've got going. So without further ado, things that you need to think about when you launch an e-commerce store. I named this slide, let's make a few assumptions at first, and then I thought that was too presumptuous. But I think things that you need to look at before you launch your e-commerce store are obviously doing the market research, product research. Patty, you mentioned of the product that you're busy developing or have developed, and you've obviously gone through this whole process very recently. You basically need to do the product research. You need to look at what's trending. You need to look at what the competition is doing, what's happening in the market, and then ultimately who the buying customer is going to be. Yes, things like domains and hosting, you need to think about where you're going to be hosting. We are talking WordPress, so there's many options for hosting in the US. We kind of like to use any WP engine, which is nice to use. Yes, you can do your GoDaddies of the world. They've got a specialized WooCommerce offering, although we like more specialized hosting that's a little bit faster. So we do anything from your shared hosting like GoDaddy all the way through to something like Cloudways, which is like enterprise level cloud-based hosting. There's many different options for hosting, so I won't go into detail today, but you obviously need to think about that domain and get it registered and your hosting set up. What I also like is platforms that allow for one-click install of WordPress, which is great. It just makes things easier for those that don't really know what the complete technical details of setting up a WordPress site. That's it. All I'm going to cover on the hosting side. In terms of time to market, timing is important when you launch e-commerce. I think it's just something to think about. It depends on what time of the year it even is, what's happening. You don't want to launch an unknown product, on Black Friday when there's so much going on in the market that you'll just be drowned with all of the other people spending so much money to be seen and heard. In terms of methodologies, I like the MVP approach, which is like just building a minimum viable product that you can launch fast with, and then iterating on that. Or alternatively, if you really want to do your homework and build a proper site, you can do that in a staging environment and ultimately just launch that whole project once off. I kind of like to launch fast and tweak, because sometimes you also need to be agile and respond to market conditions and what's actually happening. And that's why you see a lot of stores pivoting with products often after they've launched. So something that's super important when it comes to e-commerce is trust. So I've just listed a few items, and on the right, I found an interesting graphic that just highlights which of the following would help you trust a retailer you've never purchased from before. And that counts for people launching a new online store. So you kind of obviously need good product information. Product first is what I would always say. But you kind of need to be relevant to the target audience, and we've spoken about the audience. You need to be competitive in your pricing. You need to have social proof and good user-generated content. You need to look at your policies, and that's something that's super important, is your terms and conditions, shipping and returns policies of your online stores, because that's very important to actually create trust. If you don't have those policies, people think, well, what happens when something goes wrong? And that just makes sure that it's very clear on how you handle those situations. So that's why it helps with trust to have those. Obviously third parties, I think that kind of comes later, all the reviews and the third party things comes later. So when it comes to on page, I would say payment logos work very, very well, at the bottom, and your typical trust badges, which I'll show you guys what that looks like later. Just like little statements of your returns policy and 100% guarantee, satisfaction guarantee. Those kind of little badges work very well to create trust as well. Thanks, Mickey. I'll come back to that question just for clarification. In terms of up-to-date information, that's very important to create trust, because think about it. Say you've launched 6 months ago, you've got a blog on the website, and you haven't updated it in about 5 months. It doesn't look good. So it helps to create trust for users to land and see, okay, there's something new. There's this week's special or something new is happening. It's also important to create trust. And then to make it reasonably easy, I wouldn't put it in your main menu at the top necessarily, but reasonably easy for people to reach out to you and get in touch when there is a problem, or they just want to find out more. What we find sometimes happens on some of our own online stores is people would literally look at your catalog and the products and then use the contact form to email you the URL of the product and then ask questions that's very clearly in front of you. That might be a UX problem, actually, because we don't put the information where it should be, but we've had the funniest contact requests, or they'll contact you and say, please send me your catalog. And the whole website is basically the catalog. So you kind of want to avoid to put it front and center, the contact details, but it should at least be there. in terms of best practices for layouts, I'm going to cover some of your header and footers. So you know that you've got your notification bar at the top. That's usually where you give your free shipping statement over X. It's kind of, Mickey, what did you mean with free shipping at 7%? Are you talking about that other spreadsheet? That
I
other
was
slide.
talking about the graphic,
Yeah,
and surprised that having free
yeah.
shipping or expedited is only 7% of, people saying that would attract them to the retailer. That's what I was.
So you know that when somebody designs these infographics, you can pretty much use what you want there. So see it as a
Right.
guideline. See it as a guideline. I agree with you. I think free shipping is higher up in the chain, but it depends on what the product is, because it differs depending on what the product is. I would say how high of importance that goes for the users. Coming back to the header, you want to keep your header simple, clear navigation, and yes, you can use mega menus, which is the multi-column. Unfortunately, that's not, as far as I know, default Divi capabilities, but there are beautiful add-ons that allow you to use even the Divi Builder to build mega menus if you wanted to. But Divi does allow for the normal drop-downs, which is fair enough, as long as it's easy to use, and as long as you ensure that there's mobile versions of that looks well on mobile. I will discuss mobile a little bit more later, if we have time. Obviously, you're gonna have your cart icon. I'll show you how to add that to your header once you build a header or a custom header. And what I also like to do is a quick preview. It's not default Divi functionality, but there are a bunch of plugins that allow you to do quick preview of cart and checkout. But you can have your whole checkout menu if you want to build it like that in the menu. Search, you can add to the header. I would suggest to add it to the header. And something very important is to add search suggest, especially on e-commerce, so that it just starts giving you options when people actually start typing. It's just very useful to find products very quickly on a website. So it's a good UX thing. And just by the way, UX means user experience for those that don't know. So it's a better user experience to have search suggest. On the footer, we kind of want to provide users with all of the necessary more admin kind of links or resource links. So you tend to put your normal terms and conditions, your main menu items like about us, and those kind of things, FAQs, and then typically subscriptions where people can sign up for your newsletter, and your social links. Some people like to put the social links at the top, but for e-commerce, I think it's better practice to put it at the bottom of the website, because you kind of want to focus on product front and center and get them to add things to the cart and check out, and not click away to your social channels. So I tend to recommend that they usually are at the bottom. I will give a little demo of how to build the header with the theme builder just now, or later. Any questions so far? Sorry, on the header and the footer. Cool. On the homepage, yes, you can go in many different directions. So I've thrown a few options for us to look at on the screen. There's always a debate on whether it's good or not to put a hero image in there, but I kind of like the idea of a hero to create a mood. So on that Storm Creek example that you see on the screen, I kind of immediately get the feeling of the great outdoors. So this is the feeling that I get within 5 seconds of me looking at this picture of this website, and that's kind of what you can get across with a good hero image. It shouldn't necessarily overpower your whole site, but it's a good place to put like a statement of a who we are statement or a value statement, or to highlight anything that you in particular want to feature, like they did, like what's new, for instance, on that hero. I kind of like how they've done it. This is very easy to do with Divi, with the slider module. And you can also even add buttons with Divi, so like call to actions if you want to click through to certain sections of your website. I often advise clients, when they build a new online store, that story or their story should be important to highlight. So I kind of said their product or story. That's what I meant by that. It's nice just to tell people an introduction or give them an introduction to who you are, and actually have them just understand what you're all about, especially if you're running a new store. It depends on the marketing angle or the method that you're going to be having, because and it also depends on where users are in the marketing funnel. If they are, say, middle of funnel and they basically looking for your type of products, then I think story works well. If they're right at the bottom of the funnel, then it's unlikely that they'll get to the home page, because your ads will probably send them straight to the product to purchase. So I think home is nice for top and middle of funnel, or bottom of funnel, if it's returning customers. But it's nice to have a good mix of product and story. Obviously, things like features and callouts are important. So on the bottom left example, you'll see it's kind of dress up and stand out. So it's kind of a, this is what's happening now. You can get more information on that in particular. They're highlighting a specific product. So you can see there's no euro there. They just go straight into these nice blocks, which I think is a very interesting and fresh way to do things, versus a euro, which is more traditional. But it's maybe a good idea just to test both of that out and see what works better, once you're putting proper traffic onto the website. A lot of mistakes that we see happens in the market is people think if you build it, they will come. I'm sure that's a big cliche. So it's never the matter of you build it and they will come. You're going to have to do marketing to get your traffic. And only then can you really experiment with good layouts, and to actually test things out. There's no point in 10 people a month visiting your website and you try 50% of the time one heading and 50% another heading, and this means only 5 people saw the different things. So it's not a good enough sample size to really test different layouts. Subscription, I think, is important. So I would definitely highlight that on your homepage, as a call to action. It just means for your bulk email, for your email list, because email marketing is a very, very good way to do e-commerce marketing. And then obviously you want your trust drivers. So you'll see actually trust drivers on the right in the middle here. You see these little icons. They've actually got like a code promotion or multiple code promotions, but it's kind of just, you can't really see the text, but it talks about shipping and when do you get free shipping. So it's just little icons that draw your attention, just to your trust drivers, and that's what we refer to them as. And then you'll also see, with regards to the features and callouts, these order samples, Explorer latest catalog. There's some create an instant virtual, and I don't even know what the word is there, but it's just some callouts just to get your attention to important parts of the website. So I think that's a good mix to have on the homepage. On an e-commerce site, you kind of want to make sure that products are front and center. So you can see it's not too far down that you see products on that screen. I obviously couldn't show the whole thing, but it's a good example of what a good homepage would look like. Any questions around home? Cool. Seema?
Yeah, the layout on the left because if in the mobile, so it'll be like you decide which column will come first, because
you can.
Okay.
So the beauty of Divi is you can obviously switch things on and off via mobile or desktop or any different kind of view. So you can decide to have a different display. I would actually have a visual at the top. So the one in the middle, I would actually put at the top, and the new collection, whatever is fresh, and then move the dress up and stand out to be lower down. But I guess it's something to test. Usually it stacks from the left to the right, which means dress up and stand out will be first, and they'll just stack on top of each other. But it'll likely look different on mobile. I mean, this arrow will go somewhere else, I assume, because that seems like just to go to that new collection. But it's very important. You raise a good point. On mobile, things look completely different. So the hero that you see on the right under the what's new, we usually do portrait versions of heroes, or we sometimes leave them out completely. What also happens is if you've got a video background, for instance, as that right-hand hero, it doesn't always work that well on mobile. So we go for static versions in portrait design for mobile specifically, just so that it looks better. And that's like a good tip for when you switch to mobile. But the nice thing about Divi is we can switch between mobile and desktop views.
So do you design different sections for mobile or for desktop? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. For the hero, for your catalog part at the bottom, you don't necessarily need to do that. But it's kind of, I would go for square blocks, say for instance on the right hand side for these callouts, these order samples, etc., because it works on mobile and desktop. So it just makes more sense. If you have the time or the client has the budget, if you're an agency, we can go completely bespoke per device if you want to. But we've got the capability at least. So yeah. I like that. In the product archive, yes, go for it.
I think Linda had a question.
And
yes,
I'm a real beginner, so forgive me, but trust drivers, why are these codes giving trust? Are they giving discounts or something?
So that in particular is just that example. That's not necessarily a prime example of a trust driver. Your trust driver is like 100% satisfaction or 30-day money back guarantee or free shipping over X amount of dollars.
Okay.
And those would be your typical trust drivers that you see on a website. I mean, we might see some when we look at examples later.
Okay, thank you.
I think these ones in particular, yeah, it is a bit confusing. It's not your typical trust drivers that you see. Cool. So on the archive, this is literally when you go to /shop or to any category on the store, you're going to see obviously some products. So what we find is important things to get users to product quickly are product filters. We recommend to do them. You've got some basic ones in WooCommerce out of the box, WooCommerce/Divi out of the box. They don't look as fancy as the ones that we see on screen here, but we do recommend to implement probably like Ajax filters that allow you to, for instance, select specific categories, select specific colors, select by price, etc., so that it then filters the product on the right hand side. And the nice thing about WooCommerce is you can filter in category usually once you use some of those filter plugins. I know that Ye Themes have a nice Ajax filter plugin, and there's many others that allow you for nice filtering of products on the right hand side. It's just very easy for users to actually get to product. So filter is important. You don't need to necessarily have it on the left-hand side. You can do filters at the top of your products as well. A horizontal filter, we call that. But it's quite typical to have it on the left-hand side because users are used to having filters on the left-hand side. I always advise clients, you don't want to go too far away from what users are used to, unless you are a very bespoke kind of brand that have their very unique way to do things. But what you don't want to do is confuse your users. So if you're going to venture away from the standard layouts, just make sure that it's very obvious where to find the filters and how the actually site works to find products. Quick options are just on the right hand side. You'll see where you're able to see the multiple colors in the list view. That's not the default Divi functionality, but it's good practice to do something like that. Where you can quickly see options. Sometimes you even have a quick view that pops up a little pop-up where you can quickly select product options and add to cart, which is usually a nice way to do things. What I also like is actually a flip image. I'll come back to the themed content, but I like the idea of a flip image, and that just means you've got a featured image, but you've got a second image that you see on hover. Divi has like a little icon that it shows to click through. I like to exchange that with an extra plugin that actually gives us a flip that just shows you more of the product in this list view, which is quite popular. Your sale badges, I didn't mention them specifically, but you can see on the right, these are called sale badges. So you've got little icons and things that show you sale badges. You can also see a little heart here at the bottom right. That's just favoriting, so it's very easy to favorite products and add them to a wish list, which I like. That's typical good practice. And then the themed content, I just wanted to mention briefly. On the left, you can see it's straight to product. So say, for instance, you are in a category, it doesn't really talk about the category, but on the right-hand side, you can very clearly see it's camping gear, and they have a little blurb about camping gear. Obviously, this is just an illustrative site, so it's not nonsense content. But you get the idea and the feeling once again. So it's more emotive, and you get the idea of. I think when it's themed, you kind of want to show the customer where can they be when they buy these products, which is usually a good, what's the outcome? Sell the outcome. And I think that's always a good thing to do when you talk about theming. It also gives you the opportunity to write content about the particular category, and that's good for SEO. Sometimes what we recommend is doing it like this on the right-hand side, where you've got the title and a subtitle, but then below the actual products, you have a description of the category. That's for SEO purposes, so that you can have a bit of written content that gets read by the search engines and help you rank that particular category. In the end, I think just the whole idea again is to get people to add products to cart as fast as possible and to find products as easy as possible. In any view, basically, that's the purpose of e-commerce. Sorry, any questions around archive and categories in particular?
Would you be sharing what kind of other plugins you use to put the sale and put the color option? Like
we can chat about it. There are specific ones. I can go and look for them on particular sites because I've used so many over the years that I can't think of any particular one, but I can go and look at specific sites even and go and see which ones we have. I do know, in fact, when I get to the product, which I can switch to, so these swatches is also a plugin that you usually want to add. It's not default. You usually, I don't know that you can display colors, but when you implement swatch plugins, it allows you to do colors in this way, which is nice. And also it's little like clickable buttons versus drop downs when you choose your variables. What simple versus variable means, Linda, is a simple product doesn't have product variables. That just means it doesn't have different sizes. It comes in as one thing. There's no options. If you have a variable product, which is a default feature of WooCommerce, then you can have attributes, and your attributes could be things like color, size, etc. So those are typical variables that create a variable product. So just different options for a product. And then the nice thing is you can then select these. You can have unlimited versions of attributes and how you create variables. In WooCommerce, it allows you to create basically all variables, or you can decide I only have large of orange, etc., etc. The nice thing is too, when you do stock control and you actually have zero stock of a particular variable, it'll just hide it on the front end, and that's a better user experience because you don't want to actually show the blue and the medium if it's not available to be purchased. As you choose your color options, it's likely to also highlight what sizes are available below that automatically, depending on which kind of variable swatch plugin you are using. But we can look at those, Seema, shortly. I like the idea of swatches, especially you can use photographic images even. So sometimes clients have a different finish for a product. So say something is velvety or it's shiny or it's got a different kind of finish, then it's nice to show that with an actual image and not just the color swatch. So there are quite some different options that you can use when you create variables via swatches. In terms of good content guidelines, I would say a good content guideline is just ensuring that you talk towards the pain points of what the product is solving, or you talk about the outcome. The outcome meaning once you have this product, this is how you're going to feel, kind of thing. But it's, I didn't want to spend too much time on content. I think that goes too deep into the actual writing and content, and I have a whole session about just good content for e-commerce, so I won't do that today. But just keep it in mind that you actually do need a reasonable amount of content. This example doesn't actually have a short description, but generally where it says this is a grouped product, that's where your short description goes, above your product variables, and then your long description is usually lower down on the page. I can show you some examples shortly. In terms of your images, you want to make sure that it's nice and big. We usually go for around 800 by 800 pixels at the moment, but we upload them probably at around 1200 size pixels because of the zoom effect, excuse me, that you've got. Let me just clear my throat quickly. There we go. So you kind of upload them a little bit larger, and just be aware when you work with images for performance purposes that you resize them before you upload them. So that's just a recommendation for performance. And then you can save them at like a percentage if it's a JPEG of compression, just to make the file size reasonable. There are many plugins, obviously, that allow us to reduce the file size and optimize file size after you've uploaded them. But what we find happens is clients load a 5 megabyte picture, and then it does all the automatic stuff, and it's all good and well because your site performs well, but suddenly they're sitting with like a 50 gigabyte hosting account because there's so many large images that's been uploaded, and it's just a waste of time, to be honest. So I always say just do it right from the start. Trust and social proof, it's not on this example, but what we sometimes like to do is I've had a client that close to the add to cart, they would literally have a little button, have any questions, click here to WhatsApp us. And literally it starts a WhatsApp window to have a conversation. You can add chat there, you can reiterate your shipping conditions. You can reiterate those trust drivers of free shipping if you have this much close to your add to cart. It doesn't have to be above the add to cart. It could be maybe where that SKU text is or below the add to cart, but just as long as it's visually in the front and center. Reviews, yes, important to have lower down on the page. It's not in the example because this was more just for the variables, but it's good to have your reviews lower down on the page, and that's standard practice for WooCommerce. Any questions here?
Sorry, I had a quick question. In the product, have you uploaded like different images of the colors, or the plugin is doing the thing?
No, you can upload different, it's your variables. So when you create your variables of a variable product, you can upload a different image for every variable. The swatch just does the swatches for each variable representation. So it depends on the swatch plugin, which shows on the right-hand side, but it's standard WooCommerce functionality to upload the different product images per different variable.
Okay.
Cool. So I think we're still good on time, right, Mickey? I can go into a quick demo.
Oh, yes, we have plenty of time.
Okay, I'm going to go into the demo and then I'll come back to the marketing thing if we have time. So let me just quickly, okay, I'll show that, and then I'm going to go to, this is just a little demo site, so it's not a live site. I just want to show you where to find all the different options, but we're going to go into the theme builder. So just under Divi and then Theme Builder. So what we're going to do is just build a custom header. That just means we've now, okay, don't restore. We've just built a very basic site. It's got 1 or 2 products in it. And we now want to add a global header to the website that's got a cart inside. So I'm going to go in the theme builder. So what this means is this gives us the capability to globally add a header and a footer and even body, although we're not going to do any work on the body at this stage, because I think that's not what we want to do right now. So header, build global header. There are options to load from library, but if you've already gone into a direction with your designs, I wouldn't load any of those library items unless it's something very vanilla and purely a layout. Then you could potentially do that. So it's by default got a section. So I'm going to just actually not use this. I'm going to just add a full width section. And then I'm going to go full width menu. So that's the one that you want to choose. Now I'm just going to first remove the top section that I had there. Okay, so now this is at the top. This is just a demo. So I'm going to just quickly load a logo. So now it's obviously not the right size. We're going to go into our design tab. Just find the actual, I think it is under design that I do the logo size. No, sizing
There might be a separate size, yeah, a logo sizing under, right?
was under the sizing. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
exactly.
you. So I'm going to go there and just make it like that. You can have max height, just because remember it kind of does its thing when you've got different sizes. So max height is something that you could do. This is an exact height, or you can do max height, which kind of scales it. I'm going to just leave this the default again. I'm going to, however, just check my module alignment. Yeah, that's fine. Then under spacing, I'm going to give it some padding on the left and the right. In fact, I'm going to give it some top padding too. And I'm going to lock that in just to give it some padding, and you'll see why shortly. Okay. Actually want to make it all full width, so I'm going to just check quickly here. Yeah, the left align's fine. I just want to show you what that looks like when it's centered. This gives you those options. Menu direction, yes, that's fine. So yeah, I want to make it full width because I kind of want it to be the full page width. So I'm going to just okay that. Now I'm going to just hover. Wait, I need to actually just still go in there. Elements. This is where you should switch on the shopping cart. It's under elements, and I kind of do want the shopping cart. The shopping cart. I'm going to show quantity. I kind of like the idea of showing the quantity on this particular site, and then the search icon. And if I go to the content, yeah, it's just main menu, but you can select a different menu. So if you were to build a top bar, you could technically load a different menu in the top bar. In your top bar, in fact, let's just do that. See quickly. No, it's probably not a good idea to do a full width. Let me kill that. Menu. Yeah, I don't have a different menu now, but you can actually change the change where you place that, and then maybe it's a different color. Let me just so that there's no confusion. But you'll have to just change basically the styling of that as well. Mm,
I think background color clear.
Yeah. Right. I'm just looking for that background. Should be under content, background. There we go. Thank you. Then we move this to the top. So there you've got the top menu. You can write a line as well, if you want to. This just looks funny now because it's the same menu, so I don't actually like that. Let's rather go for just a statement text. Sixteen. It's smaller. Center, light. Okay. And then what I like to do is just reduce. Luckily, it's pretty easy. Right. Control Z does actually work. Here we go there. Design,
Best
sizing.
thing ever. I mean, the moment I learned about Control Z 15 years ago, I was
Yeah.
like, where have you been all my life?
Yeah. So I'm trying to make it 0, but I don't know what's going on here now. I think I've gone too far. Yeah, that's what I've done. I've given it a negative. So there we go. I think that looks okay for now. So another thing that I just want to check quickly, there's a way to right align the menu, and I did it just before this, and of course now I can't find it. Let me see quickly. Design, menu text. I think it's here. Let's see. Right, there we go. Now it's right aligned the text. So I like that. So now we're going to save it. Now I exit by pressing the cross top right, and very, very, very important, click the Save Changes button. I would have hoped that it auto saves, but it doesn't do an auto save. So you need to go and click this button that saves it. And then when you look at the actual website, you can see your new header. Now it looks funny because the WordPress bar is at the top, but at least you can see there's my header and it looks quite nice. Now, if you want to edit products, you can basically do the same with products and the archive. Are we still good for time? Okay. Cool. Thanks, Mickey. So you can literally go. Let's look at the archive. So build new template. Now, the nice thing about the theme builder is you can choose what are we overriding in terms of a template. So I want to go and look for all product categories. Well, the product archive, basically. I think that's the one. Yep. Must be the product archive, not specific products. You can technically choose specific products if you want unique layouts for particular products. You can also do specific categories. So if you've got a certain type of product category that needs a special layout for that category, then you can do that, or you can do it on a product level as well. So it's very, very useful on what you can do. I'm going to just choose the product archive. Now it copies, obviously, because I've already got a global header and footer, so it's copying that over. I'll come back to the footer, but I don't think that's necessary. If we have time, we can come back to that. I can see there's somebody that wants to enter, or is it? You can decide whether you want to admit them or not. Okay. Okay. Custom body for the product archive. So let's build a custom body. So we are starting with nothing. So single. Now we need the title. So I'm going to just do text. So here's a little trick. No, not AI, dynamic. So dynamic content is this little icon that you see here. You need to click that, and then essentially it pulls whichever page it's on. So because we are wanting to pull the title, it's literally the post archive title. That's what we need. So that's over there, but we can now go and change the design. So say we want to have this whole section once again in a certain background color, just so that we can see what it looks like. Just choose a blue. I'm going to want to make our text white. In fact, that's fine. We even do have before and after, but I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to just say that is what it is. Text, heading text. It's interesting that they actually, we do that quickly. And I don't know if I change it here to a heading 1, it might work, but let's see. So if I make it a heading 1, which is not a paragraph, and then archive, no, it didn't work, but it doesn't really matter. Going to go to the text. That's interesting. Do any of you know whether it's possible to change the actual, I know that we can change the size of the text, but
Is it a before and after? Like you put a quote there?
no, it's
No?
right here. But what
Okay.
I'm interested to do is make sure that it's an H1, because I don't think this is an H1. I think this is paragraph text that's just styled at the size. So I haven't seen if I can fix this, but it doesn't look like I can. So I'm going to just leave it as is for now. But I do think it's important to figure out a way to actually make this an H1, a title text dynamically. So I'm
I
not
think
sure.
if you,
I think when you click on the post and that before and after, if you do H1 there, in the codes, I don't know. Somehow I remember doing it a long time ago.
That's interesting. No, I think this is just whatever comes before.
Okay. Then I've done some time ago.
Because
Important.
so the reason why you do this text is it's very good for SEO. So you can basically say shop and then shop before your archive title and shop whatever, and then you can say online
Yes.
at the end.
Yeah.
And you can literally have your archive title automatically pulled, and you see before and online. Well, I did a shop, but that's what before and after is. So I'm actually not sure how to change this to H1. It's probably very obvious, and we're all missing it at the moment. So, but it's fine. At least we've got the title. Now, obviously, we want the actual products to show. So I'm going to add another section, a regular section. And now we're just going to do the shop module, right? Product. It's not a product category. Sorry, a product gallery. Right. Well, let's put a breadcrumb in. First, I like to put a breadcrumb, and then we can add something else. Yeah, of course it's going to do that. Okay, let's make it easier.
Layers, yeah.
Yeah. So we found the workarounds sometimes when these things overlaying each other, but I'm going to just do it over here. So I want to actually check what this module is called, because it used to be the shop module, and then, okay, so Woo modules, products, I assume. Yeah, so it's just the products module. So I'm going to just choose the default and go back to the visual view. So now you can see it's listing my products. Use current page is important because it needs to pull whatever the current archive is that you're on. So you definitely need to choose use current. This is how many products you want to show, how many columns. So we can just say 4 column in default, and it'll change the size of the actual products. I don't have 4 products in here, so unfortunately won't show 4, but at least you can see. Name, image, price, you can decide everything that it shows. So I don't know what I did now. Just try and save first. There we go. Offset you don't need to worry about right now. Offset you will do if, for instance, you've got maybe a product gallery, which is a nice big version of a featured image, and you choose to only show featured images there, and you want to continue featured images below, or sorry, featured products below, but you want to offset it by the ones that you show at the top. Then you can use the offset to show from product number 3 in the archive versus the first 2, if you want to highlight them in a different way. So that's just what we use offset for. But I was at the elements, price, rating. I kind of like them all, so we'll keep that. We maybe go into, you definitely want pagination, because after 12 products, you want to definitely have pagination. It won't show it now, I think, because we don't have more than 2 products. So if we go to title text, maybe what we want to do is just make them a little bit smaller. Okay, that looks okay. Pricing, you can just change everything here if you want. So do pricing, maybe the font can be a little bit bigger. There we go. And that's basically how you change the archive. You can then save. But like I said, you could technically add a full width section here with a featured image for an archive that's theme based, and you can pull. I think you can dynamically pull the feature image of a particular category, which then will dynamically pull in, so that you do this on a global basis, but it pulls in the featured image for the category dynamically. So you don't need to go and design it every time. It's just very useful when you design product layouts. So that's the archive. We're going to close and then save changes again.
Quick question,
so I
Dirk.
can go.
You used
Yeah.
archive products. So what's the difference between an archive and all products? Why archive?
So it's the same. So I think what it'll do, wait, let me just quickly go there. I want to check quickly, because it says under products. So in the demo that I looked at before, when I prepared, it said, I think this archive is just all categories. So that's, I assume, is going to be /shop and your categories. That will be the same, styled the same, because I don't see all categories, which I assume is just archive now. Is that your question?
Yeah, like what's the difference? Like you choosing archive page or all products? Why you chose the archive page? That was my thing.
So all products is product specific. That's a product customization and not your product list view.
Okay.
So I can show you products quickly. So let's create one that's all products. And then
Dirk,
create template.
can I just step in for a second?
Sure.
We're about 1 minute to the hour, and
Okay.
I know we're all willing to hang out and continue, as long as everyone else is. I know Douglas has to take off.
Yeah.
And how about you, Linda? Are you gonna stay with us?
I have to go. This is wonderful. I'm a beginner, so
Cool.
It has limited impact, but I'm really impressed.
Cool. I'm glad. I hope that you're using Divi.
Yes, thank you.
Awesome.
Take care, everybody.
Take care.
Thanks, Linda.
Thank you.
Yeah, Becky, I don't know if you want me to continue, but I'm happy to continue, Seema, if you just want to quickly see on the product itself.
We are recording it, and many people were asking for WooCommerce, and it's a great presentation. I'm like, really, I'm getting like you here. So
No problem.
Yeah, please
So
continue.
custom body on a product archive. What I have done, Elegant Themes have been so gracious to actually, I see there's somebody that wants to come in again, but I'm not sure if it's a bomber.
Oh, no, that's this is a real person. I think
Okay.
we'll admit them.
Okay, cool. So uh, inside joke. So product archive, Elegant Themes I was mentioning were so gracious on one of their demos on their own website. They actually tell you how to do the editing of a product archive. So they actually have a little template which I've downloaded. So I'm going to just show you an example of importing a layout that you can then customize. Because you might not know all of the different elements on a product page specifically that you can use. So this just gives you all of the elements on the page and serves as a basis to start customizing. So add from library. So I'm going to just quickly check, where did I do this now? Add from library. I think it was actually not here. I think I've actually done it wrong. All products, add, and there add from library actually. There we go. You can actually choose existing pages. In fact, this might be a good one to do. In fact, this is maybe an easier way to do is just choose any product that's a default product. So I'm going to just choose an actual product, which will then just pull in your default products anyway. So you don't need to import a layout. So I'm going to just choose that. Use this layout. So I'm basically using an existing page and then I'm going to edit. So here's your default view. And now you can pretty much edit anything. You can go crazy, full width. I've seen some amazing examples from Divi themselves, but once again, you don't want to go too far away from what users are used to. But it does give you a lot of flexibility. Please never remove the notice that's here at the top. That's very important for when you add things to basket, but you can do your styling at least on there. And I usually just show, just the capabilities to go and change the title text. H1, yes, just for SEO purposes, you always want the main title on a page to be an H1. It is by default, so you don't really have to change anything. So I'm only going to change the size. Something bigger. It's very big, but it's fine. Pricing, and you can move things around if you want. If you want the price to be right at the top, I don't know why you would do that, but if you want to, you can probably build more complex layouts and columns. And put things in columns, but just remember how it stacks on mobile. So I kind of like to keep it very simple, like 2-column image and products, and then your main text, then your product options, etc. So you literally can change anything here. If you wanted to move, let me just quickly say, let's put a whole nother row in. Let's make it like this. So I'm doing a product gallery layout as a grid. And now it'll essentially, obviously I don't have enough pictures for this particular product, but it's going to put them in a row grid underneath. So the main image is there, and this is a grid. If you have multiple images, it'll automatically show like standard WooCommerce below the picture here on the left. So it's maybe overkill, but I just wanted to at least give you an example of what you can do if you add more. You can add all kinds of things here, but let us just look quickly at the actual elements. So if you go Woo, it basically gives you anything that you can add that's got to do with WooCommerce. So cross sells might be interesting. But it's technically the same thing as you may also like, but that's what cross sells are. You control your cross sells on the product level, where you can have upsells and cross sells. An upsell is just a better version of the current product. A cross sell is something that you bought, tracksuit pants, and there's the top that or the jumper that goes with that. So that's how you usually do that. But you need to go and set all of that up before you even build your different layouts. So it's a bit complicated. You can always start with the defaults and then just go from there. I kind of like the standard layouts, but it's always, there's a lot that you can do. You can also split the information out into multi-column, for instance, instead of having it full description like this. You can even, the product gallery, you can have like next to the product description. In fact, let's do that quickly. Say, for instance, we're doing something like this, but we want to move this over here. And then, okay, that's too much. We don't want this over here. I want to go back to the single column. That's because I don't have another row. I've changed that row now. Single. It's fine. I don't want anything there. Okay. Now here. That's interesting. Let's go back to our other view. Okay, it's funny how it's done it now, but I'm going to just say, I'm going to kill that one. And the tabs, I'm going to do the product gallery. So now you've got a product gallery next to, and it might be a slideshow next to the actual description. And you can choose what you want to do here too, by the way, in the options. So obviously it's this product, but you can decide to show the gallery there or not. So maybe you switch the gallery off there and it only will show the featured image. And then when you, and your sale badges, and when you go to down here to read more about the product, there you see the product gallery. So it's like just a different way to do the layout. This I'm going to kill. It's too much. That whole row I can kill. The layout's not perfect because I didn't do it 50-50. In fact, maybe that's a good idea just to change it to 50-50 because then it'll line up better. Or we might want to swap it to put this over here and put this over there. Nope, it didn't work. It's not always that simple, right? I find that the drag and drop actually doesn't always work. You need to drag another element first. So let me go back to this view. Yeah. Not kind of like text, image, text kind of thing going there. And then there's, you may also like, fonts are way too big. So I would want to change that. In fact, we can just make it 4 and 4 because then it's going to go smaller. Design, title text, a bit smaller. Way too big. Oh, that's that. Oh, that's okay. Maybe I do want that quite big. And then this I definitely want smaller. That's interesting. Let's make it. There we go. You can also do interesting things like, in fact, let me just do this again. So while I'm editing this, you can actually go there. And if you want to, for instance, give them rounded edges, you can go and give them rounded edges. Sorry. And now suddenly they've got rounded edges. And you can do that in the product archive view as well, but you need to be editing this module and have it open. And then when you highlight, it actually shows you can go straight to the editing of those particular elements that you see there. This counts for archive and any element basically that you work with. So yeah, that's basically it when it comes to this. Save, and that's editing a product archive. There are obviously many different options. You can play with your whole backgrounds, just like your typical editor, and go and change background colors if you want to do interesting things. But then it's going to take us forever tonight, so I'm not going to do that tonight. But at least you can have a good idea of how customizable it really is. What I really like is there's a reasonable enough default to start with. I usually say go for your fonts, colors, and after you've done your customizer settings, and then play around with it. It's going to take time, as you can see, and we just don't have the time today. But I've done a lot in the short time that we did have, so I think we've actually done a nice little demo for now. Let me just kill that.
Thank you.
And then save changes. And that's basically it when it comes to the demo. I've got a little link here that I can actually share in the chat, just if you guys want to go and see how to do your template editing. And that's just that article that I mentioned, which is very detailed. I think they basically bring these nice tutorials out as they bring the features out. So that's the nice thing about elegant themes. And then just on the marketing side, would you guys like me to spend 5 minutes on marketing, or would you like to wrap?
Sure, why not? Sure.
We are here. So just when it comes to marketing for e-commerce, yes, they are, it's very deep, but just want to give some tips. Beware of seasons and trends. In fact, let me just make it a proper slideshow. Beware of seasons and trends, and this comes back to the timing that I mentioned before. When you do anything e-commerce, you need to make sure that you launch at the right time. But your marketing should also be timed properly. Very important to keep track and do your analytics properly. So we usually recommend Google Tag Manager with GA4, which is Google Analytics 4, the latest version of Google Analytics, because it allows us just to do proper e-commerce tracking, enhanced e-commerce tracking. And we switch, we actually have to actively build in conversion tracking. That just means that you track your sales and you're able to track where did your sales come from. Because I think with e-commerce, it's essential that you do track where your sales came from. And with Google Analytics 4, it's a bit complex to set it up, your conversion tracking, but there are many tutorials online how to set up e-commerce conversion tracking using Google Analytics 4. Other integrations that we do usually on all of our builds, which we do recommend to do, is just your setting up Google Merchant Center. So there are plugins to give you a merchant feed. That's just a feed of your products that you can then submit to what we refer to as Google Merchant Center. We also recommend to do a meta product feed. Funny enough, around the world, they've switched it off for us South Africans for some reason. We can't make use of meta product feeds any longer, but that's that feature when you feed your products into Instagram and Facebook, and you're able to tag products when you do posts on Instagram, for instance. That's just what that feed enables you to do. Google Console is just Search Console, so that just allows you to submit your sitemap, your SEO sitemap to Google. So when you make changes to products and pages on your website, it just notifies Google faster. So we usually recommend to do that. SEO, obviously, by default, install your Yoast or Rank Math plugins to do your default SEO settings. Email and automation, we highly recommend to set up. So your MailChimp or MailPoet, because that's owned by WooCommerce. I particularly like as a very easy to implement setup. It's not an enterprise level tool, but it sits right in WordPress, which I really like. And it works pretty well for some basic automations like abandoned cart and follow-up emails, first purchase emails, etc. So definitely a good idea to set that up. And just a quick stat globally, they estimate for every dollar spent in email marketing, you make $36 back if you do it properly. So it's still a very, very good channel to invest in when it comes to marketing your e-commerce store. Obviously, social media is still there. It is what it is. You can have paid there or organic. We kind of tend not to focus too much on organic unless there's very good budget with the clients, because they tend to not want to spend too much on organic marketing when it comes to social media, because it's very time consuming and you don't get as good as a return as you could with something like paid ads, which is your typical Google ads and paid social ads. Yeah, but that's basically what we focus on when we do marketing. Obviously, it's much more complicated than that, but I at least wanted to cover some bases when it comes to marketing your e-commerce store. And I think that's me. I know that Seema, you've asked about some examples, but also the particular plugins. So if you want, I won't show examples per se, but I might actually just go and log in and see if I can find that plugin for you. Would you like me to do that quickly?
Yes, thank you. Because I struggled with one thing called sold. Like there are something sale because I was doing for an artist and he was selling things. So I don't know what I did. This was 2 years ago. I've forgotten, but I was what you have done.
So there's a free badge plugin that we use. Let me just quickly see if I can log into one of my sites. And then I'll give you the name. I know that Ye Themes. So Ye Themes have lovely plugins. It's quite expensive. It's just Ye. Let me just write it here. They've got a whole range of e-commerce related WooCommerce plugins. So here we go. Badge Designer Lite for WooCommerce. That's the badge designer that we sometimes use, and it allows you just to have some custom badges that you design for your products. That's one. Ye Themes have amazing plugins for, let me just show you quickly. For your swatches, and also let me just show you swatch. So this allows you to do image swatches, color swatches, and actual designs of little PNGs or images that you put inside, and it even helps it in the quick view. So it's kind of a nice one. But Ye Themes I really like because they've got a very wide selection of WooCommerce related plugins. There's too many to mention actually. There. Okay. On the actual plugins, just as a last thing, Advanced Woo Search is a free search suggest plugin that I highly recommend, because you don't by default have search suggest. So it's a very nice, simple plugin that automatically gives you a nice little drop down when you search. And then obviously MailPoet I did mention, and then there's like a million different plugins. Product Feed Pro is the feed plugin that we use to do your merchant feed. It can do Meta and Google feeds. So I like that one in particular. And as you can see on this particular build, we've got one hell of a lot of plugins. I mean, your typical ones that like there's bulk editing products, plugins. There's all kinds of WooCommerce related, obviously your payment gateways. I didn't mention payment gateways because I think that's too broad, and there's too many different options when it comes to e-commerce. I didn't want to cover that in particular. Importing and exporting plugins we use all the time, because if you need to synchronize your stock with the ERP system or an accounting system, then you need those kind of import plugins. But I think that's a topic for a different day.
WooCommerce
I was going to mention.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was
Yeah,
going to mention
mhm,
that from the Divi standpoint with
yeah,
WooCommerce, I know there are a lot of third-party Divi developers
yeah, yeah,
who sort of write extensions to the Divi WooCommerce modules
yeah, yeah.
that also add a lot of the items that the plugins, some of the plugins you're mentioning do.
Yeah, I agree. And I actually think that's probably the best place to start. I'm not going to name particular ones, but I think there are quite many, and you can maybe start in the Divi marketplace on elegantthemes.com. There's many different extensions right there, which I think is a good starting point to extend functionality. But as you know, with e-commerce, there are thousands of different extensions that you can use.
Right.
And I don't want people to get confused in the beginning because there's so much to think about when you launch an e-commerce store. And I think just selecting the right product in the first place and having the right strategy before you even build it is the right way to go. Because you can fail miserably with a beautiful website and the wrong product.
That's very good advice. One
Yeah.
other thing I just wanted to mention or ask about,
Mhm.
I've seen a bunch written about a somewhat new WooCommerce alternative called SureCart.
Mhm. Yes.
Have you seen that?
I've
What
seen
are
it, but
you?
I haven't. I've seen it,
Yeah.
but not used it. So we
Okay.
tend to focus on WooCommerce, Shopify, and Wix stores.
Hmm.
So generally, I haven't had exposure to it, but it's on my radar almost weekly. SureCart getting mentioned. There are obviously other platforms like Magento, BigCommerce, etc. Too. Equid, or I don't know how to pronounce it properly. But there are quite a few different e-commerce solutions. I kind of like the WordPress environment just because there's very good support, as you know, in terms of developers and just in support in general. And it makes it just such a nice community because if you really want to, you can launch it with completely free software, and of course a Divi elegant theme. So maybe that's the only expense that you have, but you can literally build a complete e-commerce solution with only Divi and no other paid extensions if you want. So you can do it relatively cheaply if you want.
Hmm. Hmm.
Do you prefer Shopify over WooCommerce or WooCommerce? What's your
No,
preference?
so no preference. It depends on the on what the client wants. I like WooCommerce because I know WordPress and I've been working with WordPress for more than 15 years. So that's my preference. When it comes to a client site, it depends on how technical the client is. Ultimately, because Shopify is much less technical to maintain as well, and as you know, on any WordPress build, you need to maintain your software. So you need to consider that there's maintenance that needs to be done in the WordPress environment, but there's a lot more flexibility in WooCommerce and WordPress environment. So if you've got reasonably custom requirements, WordPress and WooCommerce, if it's something very simple that you are looking for, Shopify is probably a better idea because you don't have to do that much maintenance. It could become very expensive very quickly though, because you kind of pay in the Shopify environment for every different app that costs some money is monthly, and they do take a percentage of all your sales. On Shopify, you also don't own the content and essentially your website, you don't own it if you really go and read the terms and conditions, where with WordPress and WooCommerce, you own everything.
Okay.
So it's just something to consider. But it depends. It's the typical
Mm.
SEO answer.
No, people just come and ask, so I said, okay, I don't have too much of
Yeah,
I
I would say if they're not technically inclined, Shopify.
Shopify.
But ultimately depends on the budget. It depends on many different factors. So I think
Okay.
whatever you're comfortable with in the end. Once again, more important thing, and I've seen so many people get stuck on the technology, is to select the right products in the business model and shipping. And in fact, I have a talk that's called Beyond the Build, and it talks about everything except for building the e-commerce store, because there's so many different things in an e-commerce business to consider, that you don't really want to get stuck on the build itself. Even though that's a very important part, e-commerce is much bigger than just the actual website.
That's great.
Thank you.
Dirk, thank you so much for this presentation. It was
Sure.
fantastic. And I don't know much about e-commerce, but I know a lot more now. So we really very much appreciate it, taking the time to do.
It was great.
A big pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank
Great.
you so much. Sorry to so.
Great. Greg, do you have any questions while you have me?
I mean, you know, I've been using Divi for a while, and I've done some WooCommerce, some small stuff, you know. So I was hoping. So Mickey mentioned that you recorded, so I'm looking forward to watching the recording, and nothing specific. Thanks though. I got a lot, just a little bit of. I got. Appreciate
Sounds
it.
good.
Yeah, because those commerce tools are new, right? So yeah, cool, awesome,
Great.
Thank you.
Again, thanks a lot, and thanks folks for attending. Those who left us at the top of the hour, thanks also if you're watching the recording, and we'll be back in October with another meetup. It'll be another virtual meetup. And in November, we're taking part in the Divi Nation Black Friday extravaganza, whatever the title of it is going to be, where we have Divi developers who talk about their products and about their Black Friday specials. And I believe it's going to be the Monday before Thanksgiving in the US. I think it's the 20th of November. I don't have the calendar up, but it's sometime around then. So look out for that as well. Again, thanks everybody.